Learning English doesn't have to be boring. In fact, it should be fun, exciting, and even a little dramatic sometimes. That's why we bring you stories that teach you without you even noticing. You'll pick up real English just by listening and enjoying the adventure. If you want more of this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you'll always know when a new story drops. Now enjoy the story. Relax, listen closely, and let your English grow naturally. Luca had always been fascinated by old things. When he was a kid, he collected broken keys, rusty coins, and faded postcards from flea markets. He loved anything that had a story behind it. So when he finally saved enough money to travel to Italy, he knew exactly where he wanted to go. The Uffizi Gallery in Florence. He had read about the Uffizi many times. It was filled with famous paintings and ancient sculptures. The kind of place where time stands still. The kind of place where even the silence has a history. Luca wasn't a typical tourist. He didn't care much about beaches or shopping. He liked museums, quiet streets, and places where he could imagine the past breathing through the walls. His journey to Florence began with a train ride from Rome. He sat by the window the entire time, watching fields, small towns, and hills roll by. He carried only a backpack, filled with clothes, a notebook, and a list of museums he wanted to visit. The morning he arrived in Florence, the sky was pale blue. The air smelled like bread and stone. He dropped his bag at a tiny guest house and walked straight to the Uffizi. He didn't stop for coffee or a photo. He just followed the signs and the crowd, excited like a child on his first day of school. When he reached the front of the museum, he stood still for a moment. The building was huge, made of stone, with long columns and tall doors. He walked in quietly, bought his ticket, and followed a group of visitors through the first hall. Everything inside was beautiful. Paintings as big as walls, ceilings with golden designs, statues standing still like frozen time. He walked slowly, eyes wide, taking everything in. Each room was different. Each work of art had its own feeling. Some were peaceful, others strange. Some made him feel small, others made him feel like part of something bigger. He moved from room to room, looking, thinking, dreaming. After a while, he found himself in a quieter section of the gallery. The group he had entered with had moved ahead. He was alone, or so he thought. In the middle of the room stood a marble statue of a man with a serious face and a strong body. His hand was raised, his eyes focused. The light from the window hit the statue in just the right way. It looked alive. Luca stepped closer. He tilted his head, studying the details. The folds in the robe, the way the toes pressed against the base. He wanted to remember every part of it. He took out his notebook and tried to sketch it, but he couldn't quite get the hand right. After a few attempts, he stopped. Then something happened. He reached out. He didn't even think about it. His fingers moved on their own. He touched the edge of the statue's foot, just for a second. It was cold, smooth, harder than he expected. He pulled his hand back immediately. It was like touching time itself. And then, from behind him, came a loud voice. A guard had seen him. The sound echoed through the room, sharp and strong. Luca turned around, heart racing. The guard walked quickly toward him, pointing, frowning, speaking in a fast voice full of rules. Luca couldn't understand every word, but he knew what was being said. No touching. Never touch. Big mistake. Luca's face turned red. He stepped back, hands in the air, trying to show he meant no harm. Other visitors turned to look. Some stared. Others whispered. A few shook their heads. Luca felt like the walls were closing in. The guard didn't shout again. He just pointed toward the exit of the room, then turned and walked away. Luca followed slowly, not sure where to go next. He didn't want to be in trouble. He didn't want to be noticed. Outside the room, he found a bench and sat down. His heart was still beating fast. He looked at his hand, the one that had touched the statue. It still felt cold. He didn't mean to do it. He just wanted to understand the art, to connect with it. He didn't realize how serious the rule was. In his country, museums were more relaxed. Sometimes people touched things and no one said anything. But this was different. This was Italy. This was the Uffizi. He sat for a long time thinking. Part of him wanted to leave, to forget the whole thing. But another part, the stronger part, wanted to stay and keep learning. He didn't travel all this way to give up after one mistake. So he stood up, took a deep breath, and continued through the museum. He walked carefully now, always keeping his hands close to his sides. He read every sign. He followed every rule. And somehow, the experience became even better. He noticed more details, paid more attention. He looked with his eyes, not with his hands. And the art spoke to him. It spoke through color, shape, and light. It told stories of gods, kings, battles, and dreams. It whispered secrets from the past, and he listened. By the time he reached the final gallery, he had almost forgotten the statue. Not because it wasn't important, but because he had learned from it. He left the Uffizi just before sunset. The sky over Florence glowed orange. The river below reflected the last light of the day. Luca walked slowly across the old stone bridge, thinking about everything he had seen and felt. He didn't buy any souvenirs. He didn't take many photos. But he remembered everything. Back at the guest house, he opened his notebook. He didn't draw the statue. Instead, he wrote a story about curiosity, mistakes, and learning from them. About how a single moment can change the way you see the world. He didn't mention being yelled at. That part wasn't important anymore. What mattered was the lesson. Respect the past. Follow the rules. And remember that not everything is meant to be touched. But everything can be understood if you pay attention. Luca continued his trip through Italy, visiting more museums, churches, and ancient sites. He never touched anything again. But he touched history in a different way. With his mind, his eyes, and his heart. And every time he walked into a new gallery, he smiled a little. Because he had learned something important. Not just about art, but about himself. He didn't have to be perfect. He just had to keep learning. And that, he thought, was the real beauty of travel. While listening to this story, you didn't just follow Luca's adventure. You also absorbed lots of useful English without even realizing it. That's the power of stories. They help you learn grammar and vocabulary in a sweet and natural way. You heard real-life sentence structures, everyday expressions, and clear examples of how English is used in different situations. And you didn't have to memorize anything. So if you want to keep learning like this, all you need to do is keep listening. Make it part of your routine. Enjoy the stories, feel the emotions, and let the language sink in. If you like this one, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and turn on the bell so you never miss a new episode. And here's a question for you. Have you ever broken a rule by accident while traveling? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Keep learning. Keep exploring. And remember, every mistake is just another step toward fluency.